In a few days from now, a new occupant will take over the largest official residency in the country. The current occupant will move to a much smaller bungalow in Lachin's Delhi. Our person of interest this week is that person, the 13th President of India, who some say has been a copybook president. In his 5-year tenure, Pranab Mukherjee has never had a tussle with the government that functioned in his name. Throughout his tenure at the Rashtrapati Bhawan, President Pranab Mukherjee has been lauded for his familiarity with the country's constitution. Almost in the same way as during his days as Congress's troubleshooter, he was the go-to man for any clarity over Congress's constitution provisions. And in about a week's time, 81-year-old Pranab Mukherjee, India's 13th president, will make way for his successor, ending his long political career.
I did not even enter a municipality in my life. I came to Parliament. I retired from Parliament when I was elected President, and when I retired from President, I retired from public life totally. Therefore, nothing in between.
Ramnath Kovind, the NDA candidate, will in all probability take over from Pranab Mukherjee. And how he will fare in upholding the dignity of his office is for times to come. For now, India will perhaps miss this president who wasn't afraid to uphold his role as the nation's key conscience keeper.
An individual is being lynched because of some alleged violation of law or not. When mob frenzy becomes so high and irrational, uncontrollable, we ought to pause and reflect. Are we vigilant enough? I am not talking of vigilantism. I am talking of, are we vigilant enough proactively to save the basic tenets of our country?
He has been a great president, a voice of sanity, stability, and hope. Hope that the constitutional safeguards will be duly protected.
In 2012, Mukherjee was nominated as the presidential candidate of the United Progressive Alliance. The elections took place on the 19th of July, and on 25th of July 2012, he was sworn in as the 13th President of the Republic of India.
I, Pranab Mukherjee,
do swear in the name of God that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of India.
do swear in the name of God that I will faithfully execute the office of President of India.
With a political career nearing its 5th decade, Pranab was expected to be the political president. His first year and a half in Raisina Hill was with his former colleagues from the Congress, Manmohan Singh and Sonia Gandhi. But the elections of 2014 brought in Narendra Modi. Two men from very different political ideologies and generations at the helm of affairs. The clash, many said, would be imminent. Differences there were, but none that held up ordinances. none that held up the government. None that came out as a conflict. But there were issues on which the government couldn't make him sign on the dotted line without clarifications. In January 2015, it took 3 ministers to convince Mukherjee of the urgency to promulgate the Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act of 2013. Between May 26, 2014, when the NDA came to power, and March 2015, the government, blocked by majority numbers of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, brought 10 ordinances to Pranab Mukherjee, who pointed out to the Modi government that it had limited power to issue ordinances, that executive orders were the last resort and cannot be the government's first option. The President never shied away from calling in the Home Minister Rajnath Singh, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, Attorney General Mukul Rohtagi, or any other legal expert whenever he needed clarifications. Clarification on issues brought to him like the Cabinet's decision to impose President's rule in Arunachal, or the Insurance Ordinance, or NDA's Land Acquisition Bill. President Pranab Mukherjee always pointed out that the series of ordinances the government was pushing would do nothing but harm and undermine the parliamentary system. But not once did he ever return an ordinance cleared by the cabinet. The President signed all of them. This, despite the Constitution granting the President the option of once returning an ordinance back to the government without his signature. Such an action signals a President's disapproval, urging amendments, something that even President Kalam had done during his tenure.
Ordinances are not the done thing under our Constitution. They are exceptional measures. And if he had reservations about the number of ordinances, I would say he was quite in the right in pointing out that government should not go for many such ordinances. But yet, I would say that there was hardly any occasion where his differences with the government, with the Prime Minister, or tension between the President and the Prime Minister ever came in public domain.
Pranab Mukherjee, a veteran of the political games of Indian democracy, must have well understood that returning an ordinance to the NDA government would serve no purpose. With the BJP itself enjoying majority in the Lok Sabha, any ordinance sent back might be returned to the President and possibly without amendments. At that instance, he would have had no choice but to stamp his approval. So President Pranab Mukherjee possibly steered clear of letting such a negative situation develop. He chose to sign what was placed in front of him.
It is not that there cannot be any divergence of view. Surely there have been divergences of views, but we have been able to keep that divergences, if there be any, only to ourselves. It did never find any place anywhere, and it did not affect the relationship between the President and the Prime Minister, between the titular head and the actual head of the administration.
At a time when incidences of religion and identity-based violence were on an increase, more than once as President Pranab Mukherjee spoke openly against the growing climate of intolerance in the country, spoke up about increasing cow vigilantism and beef politics being promoted by members of the ruling party.
He has upheld as a president the dignity of his office by his conduct. He has spoken his mind on occasions and matters which were important. And as and when he has made certain observations, those have resonated with the people, with the citizens of India.
The President also spoke about the shrinking space for dissent and debate within society, especially universities across India, when in 2016 massive countrywide protests over the government's heavy-handed approach towards dissent spread across top universities of India. As a chancellor of many a university, President Pranab Mukherjee insisted that there must be space for legitimate criticism and dissent, and that universities should be places for debate, not for violence. In January 2017, the President issued a note of caution on the government's demonetization decision, saying it could lead to a temporary slowdown in the economy and hurt the poor. But reflecting on the times wasn't President Mukherjee's only doing. He sparked a debate in the country on capital punishment when he gave his assent to the Criminal Law Amendment Ordinance of 2013. Ironically, he was also the president who rejected the largest number of mercy petitions during his term. The 13th president literally gave the go-ahead in 30 cases for hanging convicts in his 5 years at the Rashtrapati Bhawan. Interestingly, of the few petitions that he accepted, there were 4 mercy petitions that had been rejected by the NDA presidential candidate Ramnath Kovind, expected to succeed Pranab Mukherjee. Ramnath Kovind, who in his capacity as Bihar governor had acted on the state government's advice and rejected the petitions of those accused in the 1992 Bara caste massacre. President Mukherjee went by the Supreme Court's view that unreasonable, unexplained and exorbitant delay in disposal of mercy petition is ground for its commuting. In the 5 years that he has been president, Pranab Mukherjee may not have been very visible when it came to matters of politics or governance. But if there was one aspect of his presidency that stood out and stood apart from his predecessors, then that would be the changes he instituted at the Rashtrapati Bhawan. In a way, he tried to open up the President's house to the common people of India to the extent possible. A new change of guard function every Saturday is open to the public without restrictions. The Rashtrapati Bhawan itself is now open to visitors 3 days a week. President Mukherjee revived the use of the presidential buggy after nearly 20 years of its discontinuation. Then there is an interactive, high-tech and storytelling museum that has come up inside the President's estate, built on what used to be stables and the garage for ceremonial coaches. But President Mukherjee will fondly be remembered for several in-residence programs that he himself started. Teachers, artists, scholars and innovators have all had a chance to be guests at the Rashtrapati Bhawan, not something that happens every day to common Indians.
He had always been regarded as the Dada. Everybody addressed him as Pranab Da. And he was regarded as Dada because he knew almost everything. And the mastery that he had on parliamentary procedures, on constitutional issues was absolutely remarkable. So when he became the President of India, he, I think, has been one president who has followed the constitutional principles, the conventions to the hilt. You can never find fault with any action of Pranab Babu of the 5 years that he was the President of India.
Before he became president and moved above it all, for 40 years, Pranab Mukherjee was in the thick of politics. The politician's logbook, that's after the break. every Bengali has what is called a dak naam, a call name, and in his or her younger days, the Bengali is known primarily by this dak naam. Now, before President Pranab Mukherjee became the President of India and before he became a renowned politician, people in his childhood and in his locality knew him as Poltu. That was his dak naam. Pranab Mukherjee was born in Mirati, Birbhum district of West Bengal on 11th of December 1935. While his initial education was at the village primary school, he soon proved himself to be brilliant in studies and understood money at an early age. Pranab attended the Shivdi Vidyasagar College in Birbhum and then went on to do an MA in Political Science and History and also an LLB from the Calcutta University. In 1963, he became a lecturer, teaching political science at a newly opened college some 30-odd kilometers from Calcutta. And before taking the political plunge, Pranab Mukherjee also worked as a journalist with a local Bengali newspaper named Desher Dak.
He comes from a family of freedom fighters. And important thing about him is that he's a great scholar. And he is, besides English or Bengali, he knows Sanskrit very well. He has read our scriptures. So it's the sheer depth and width of his knowledge and his scholarship.
Pranab Mukherjee made his Rajya Sabha debut in July 1969. Though he called himself a sort of last bencher in Parliament, his second speech in the House was on the debate of bank nationalization. And listening to the young MP speak was the then Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. By 1973, Pranab was in Indira's cabinet.
I, Pranab Mukherjee, do swear in the name of God.
And from 1980 onwards, every time a Congress government or a Congress-led government came to power in Delhi, Pranab Mukherjee had been a minister in it.
He graduated to a position where Mrs. Indira Gandhi and then Sonia Gandhi consulting him all the time, at least she. And Mrs. Gandhi, I remember when in 1980, when she returned to power, the first thing he was to ask Pranab Mukherjee, look here, now we have to form the government, should start thinking how convene a parliamentary party meeting, so things like that. So we're dependent on that.
One of the darkest periods in Pranab Mukherjee's political career came in the 1970s. He was active in Indira Gandhi's cabinet during the emergency and was accused of using extra constitutional powers to wreck established norms and rules of governance. Pranab emerged from it unscathed and rose through the ranks. In 1982, he became the Finance Minister of India. Apart from his long stint in Parliament, he had been on the Board of Governors at the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, and was rated one of the best finance ministers in the world by Euromoney magazine in 1984.
I could see him as finance minister, the way he negotiated when the patents law were amended in order to meet the international obligations. I could see how he did his work, reaching out to all political parties. The very personality of Mr. Pranab Mukherjee used to be one of having a strong impact on others. Is like an encyclopedia. He can reel out dates and incidents whenever it is needed, and the way he remembered things. He has a remarkable memory power, and the very persona of this man is something very impressive and very illustrious.
It was this conviction and natural intellectual prowess that made Pranab such an asset to have in any government. That, plus a tenacity which saw him survive and succeed for almost 5 decades in politics. Over the years, Pranab Mukherjee came to be regarded as the perennial number 2 in the Indian cabinet. He was also the chief troubleshooter for the Congress party and the UPA.
Of course, he was the most important troubleshooter for the government, and he managed all the entire government, all the ministries. Even if there was something relating to a non-finance ministry department, for instance, or ministry, he will call the minister, he'll call us and sort out the issues. And he never made any issue a prestige issue. Was always very accommodative of the opposition's point of view.
But in 1986, after differences with Rajiv Gandhi, Pranab Mukherjee and the Congress party parted ways. Pranab went on to launch his own inconsequential political outfit. He remained in oblivion until P.V. Narasimha Rao became the Prime Minister in 1991. This was after Rajiv Gandhi's assassination, and he was finally rehabilitated into the Congress party once again.
Any party which had Pranab Mukherjee with the kind of role that he was playing would miss such a person. Quite frankly, if you ask me, Pranab Mukherjee should have been the Prime Minister of this country someday. He would have made an excellent Prime Minister. He made an excellent President instead. But surely the Congress party does not today have the kind of talent and experience and the point of view that he represented.
The buzz in New Delhi's power circles is that the Gandhi family never forgave Mukherjee's desertion of the party, and that is why he is believed to have been passed over for the Prime Minister's job in favor of Manmohan Singh in 2004. That, however, did not stop Pranab's rise to number 2 in the UPA government. As Defence Minister from 2004 to 2006, Minister for External Affairs from 2006 to 2009, and finally as Minister for Finance from 2009 until his resignation on 27th of June, when he was chosen by UPA chairperson Sonia Gandhi as the coalition's candidate for the nation's highest constitutional office.
Yes, we have missed him, because when he was in the government and in the party, he would give his views. His guidance was much sought.
Sometimes the parliamentary leaders of my party forgot to inform me that there was a meeting planned with Pranab Mukherjee, and I should accompany them, because those are issues with which I was directly concerned. Sometimes they did forget, but I always used to get a call from Pranab Babu's office to suggest that he was having this meeting and I should also be present. At times my own parliamentary party leaders used to be surprised to see me there, because they would not have invited me.
When Pranab Mukherjee presented his first budget speech, puffing on Dunhill pipes, he had a full head of hair. 30 years after he presented his first budget, Pranab Mukherjee presented his 7th and last budget in 2012. Like always, minus the flourish, rich with detail, a budget designed to squeeze whatever he could from the government's shrinking income to cater to the Aam Aadmi.
When everything goes well with the economy, we all share in the joy. However, when things go wrong, it is the finance minister who is called upon to administer the medicine. As Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark, said in Shakespeare's immortal words, I quote, "I must be cruel only to be kind," unquote.
Constitutional and political experts have long argued whether India should have an assertive president or an agreeable president. An assertive president would mean that he wouldn't keep up to the job description as it is given in the Constitution, and an agreeable president might lower the dignity of the high office. Now, in the case of Pranab Mukherjee, in all probability, he managed to balance the act, and he managed to be both an agreeable as well as an assertive president.